Hello peoples, it is I, PotatoPikachu, and today we'll talk about investing in knives. Knives is a large part of the csgo skin community as there are so many knives released with so many cool patterns and animations, and it just makes them such a popular item. It's also an item that is really hard to unbox because of its low odds, so that factor really makes it something special to obtain as not everyone can get a knife. And since not everyone can afford the most extravagant knives out there in CSGO, I'll be talking about some knives to invest in at different price points that can appeal to the people who want to spend not too much money and to the people who can afford to spend a large sum of money as well. However, keep in mind that most decent looking knives out there are $100 plus on the Steam market. I personally don't recommend buying knives on the Steam market itself and recommend you guys, if possible, to purchase them on third-party sites. They tend to be cheaper than the Steam market ones. So enough about this and let's get right into the video. So starting at the cheapest end of the spectrum is the Knife Freehand field tested for around $94. All the knives around this price point on the Steam market are Navaja knives, which in my opinion looks horrible from the size of the knife blade to the animation, shadow daggers which aren't an in high demand knife, and low end falchion knives. And to be honest, the Knife Freehand isn't a bad looking knife at all. The freehand pattern looks very nice and the contrast between silver and purple really fit well together to make it a desirable pattern in general. Along with the wooden handle that the gut knife offers, makes the overall knife slash pattern a good fit that enhances the gut knife in general. The freehand in general isn't a low tier knife pattern like the Safari Mesh, Scorched, Forest DDPAT, Boreal Forest, etc. And I would categorize it as a low mid tier pattern, so there will be decent demand for the knife. And when looking at the chart for this particular knife, there is a lot of movement with the skin as it's constantly being purchased and sold, which is a very good sign. And the skin in general seems to be rising over time, so I would assume based on the graph and looks that it's a pretty good investment for people who don't want to spend too much or can't spend too much. There are also several other gut knives that are decent investments like the vanilla gut knife and the gut knife blue steel. The vanilla gut knife is a middle of the pack knife where it isn't a bad looking knife but not a good looking one either. It's decent and there are people that just want a knife that doesn't look bad for the price they can afford. There is a constant demand for the vanilla gut knife, so if you don't want it anymore, you can sell it at a pretty fast pace. And also, the gut knife vanilla is also an old one, so the chance of it being unboxed frequently is very low with all of the cases released past it. The gut knife blue steel is also an old skin and one that personally I don't like too much. The blue steel in general is a pattern that I generally stay from because of how dull it looks, but there seems to be decent demand for this knife. And if you like this skin and also want to invest in a knife, then go for it. However, keep in mind that if you want to invest in a lower tier knife, know that the return on investment will be low as this category of knives is pretty stable and will either stay the same in price or rise slowly. Also, when looking for other knives to invest in, the best area to look in are either older knives that don't get opened as much anymore or really hype knives, and I'll get to some soon. So moving on to some higher price points, the next few knives I recommend are the butterfly knife Scorched, Safari Mesh, Boreal Forest, and Forest DDPAT. These skins start at $230 and up on the Steam market, and any of these patterns are good investments in general. The butterfly knife has had a huge price influx over the past few years because of how good the knife looks and the animations it provides. It also maybe is due in part to the Chinese community and how much it has grown over the past few years, so that plays a part as well. It's very hype and very popular, so these patterns will continue to rise in price over time. Also, TDM Jesus also made a video ranking all the knives in CSGO, and the butterfly knife was at the top of the list, having an overwhelming amount of support, leaving its status as one of the most popular knives in the game, so you can be safe to assume that this knife will continue to be popular as time goes on, so I think it's a pretty safe investment. Now I'm going to move on to higher price points from here because I think that the butterfly knife at this price point is one of the best possible investments out there, and it is one that I can confidently put in this video. But there are plenty of other knives out there and older knife patterns such as ones on the Bayonet, M9 Bayonets, and Karambits, as they are good investments that you guys can look more into to see which one you want to invest in. And I also suggest these three other knives because they are popular knife models that have good animations and look great as well. Also, as the older cases get more and more expensive, so does the chances that these older knife patterns get unboxed, so keep that in mind as well. So by now, I would assume that most of you guys don't want to or can't spend more over the $400 mark, so I'm going to talk about a couple of knives over this point for those of you that can. So if you're looking for a good looking knife that you can hold for a long period of time, rise in price, and can sell fast, then I suggest the M9 Doppler. It is currently going for around $458 and is a very stable item that will go up in price but remain very liquid. There's also the regular bayonet as well, but the M9 bayonet will always be more of a desirable knife than the regular bayonet. And this knife pattern will probably continue to be popular for the remaining of the game's period because of just how good it looks and how much of a staple it's become in CSGO. And now, moving on to the last knife of the video is the butterfly knife Fade. Like I said with the previous butterfly knives, the knife model in general is extremely popular, but adding the fade pattern to it makes it a very desirable knife. In my opinion, the fade pattern is one of the best in the game, and adding that to one of the best knives in the game explains why the knife is over $1,100 on the Steam market. I'll also point out that the fade knives in general are good investments because of how good they look, and this pattern is only available in the old cases, so look into the other fade knives as well. And by other fade knives, I mean the older knife models that aren't going to be opened as much recently, like on the bayonet, the M9 bayonet, and the karambit. Just look into those and you can see just how much of a price increase the fade knives have gone throughout the years. Adding one last note, if the shadow web knives, the Nomad, the Skeleton, the Paracord, and the Survival knife are not included in future CSGO cases, then expect these sets of knives to rise in price because that would mean it would only be exclusive to the shadow web case, which isn't dropping anymore due to the operation ending a few months back. So keep that in mind as well as we move on. But that's all, and thank you guys so much for watching this knife investing video. And I know I haven't covered a lot of knives, but for the sake of time, I didn't want to drag it on too much and make it excessively long. Also, this video was meant to just be a general guide for each price point I provided and help you guys find a knife that you can afford and invest in. Generally, with knives, the return on investment will take longer than gun skins and stickers, so understand that as well. You have to be patient when investing in knives, and there are some exceptions to this, but it isn't frequent. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and leave a like, comment any ideas for me to read, and subscribe. I'm a potato and a Pikachu, PotatoPikachu, signing out. Peace.